Hey guys, I'm Jax, a non-book boy, and this is my non-book boy review of The Wheel of Time Season 3, Episodes 1, 2, and 3. I love this show, and it's so exciting that Wheel of Time is finally back, and oh boy, what an epic, exciting, incredibly shocking, just fantastic first 3 episodes, but no bit was as spectacular or fantastic or horrifying as the cold open to episode 1. Prime Video actually released the first 10 minutes, like 70% of that cold open, ages ago. I don't know when. I watched it this morning. I actually did a live reaction and review for that. So if you want to see a man in real time slowly lose his mind and almost faint from excitement and joy and just... oh boy, what a crazy roller coaster of an opening scene that was. Go check that out. Link will be here or something in the description, all those things. But yeah, just kind of a surreal way to start the season, like having seen it, get excited about it, review it, think about it, and then like watch it a bunch of times. I think I saw it 4 times, and then suddenly the season's out, and I just watched it again. And I'm watching it being like, this is pretty fantastic, but I have seen this almost maybe too many times, and then suddenly... there's just more. Like I was watching an extended edition, like the director's cut. The scene continues and it got better and better and it got more terrifying and exciting and amazing. And it's just an overwhelming experience. The cold open, which I will refer to as the trial of Liandrin / the massacre of the White Tower, did a lot of things that I found incredibly surprising. Outside of the fact that the budget and the visual effects and even just like the pacing and the editing, like everything seems to have kind of just been bumped up to another level, another truly exciting level. Outside of the visual awe and spectacle and wonder and horror of that opening scene, something that I found really exciting is just what it means for the show moving forwards. It's kind of a moment of no return. The evil magic witch ladies have now outed themselves. They are out in the open. Every single Aes Sedai, or as I like to call them, magic witch ladies, how are they ever going to trust anybody ever again? When half of their co-workers turned out to be evil, how can you trust that the ones who are still with you aren't just like an extra layer of like undercover? Despite Liandrin being a bad guy and doing some horrible things, I love her as a character, and I really didn't want to see her die, even though throughout that entire opening scene, I just kept being like, oh my god, I can't believe she's going to die. I can't believe she's going to die. And then that moment when Alana's 2 boy toys like stab her, double stabbing, I lost my mind. And I suddenly had this moment of like, no wonder they cut the sneak peek early. They don't want to reveal that Liandrin dies like weeks before the show comes out. I was so angry as well because throughout that whole scene, I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna die. Oh, maybe they're gonna steal her. Oh, maybe she's gonna die. And then when she finally escapes and is free, I'm like, well, she sucks and I'm not on her side. Don't get me wrong, not on her side. But get out of there, Liandrin. You gotta get out of there. You got your secret amulets and gauntlets and whatever other trinkets of magical doom and destruction from that secrets place. And then they're running through the town. You're like, just get out of there, ladies. And then Alana rocks up and her 2 boy toys are there. And you're like, okay. The bad guys aren't going to die at this point, surely. So I thought Alana and her 2 boy toys were going to die. And unfortunately, even though it's tragic and sad and I didn't want one of them to die because I essentially loved everybody in this scene, which is just super exciting when you like all characters on both sides of a conflict and you know someone's going to have to lose, but you don't want either team to lose. And so we do lose boy toy number 1, which was sad and tragic, but I also feel like with a scene that is this big and that does a lot outside of killing characters, like it is just a huge moment for the show, this civil war amongst the Aes Sedai, kind of splitting them in half, fracturing the White Tower literally and metaphorically. So it's doing a lot, but I feel like because it was so big and explosive, you do need to have some casualties. You need to have like a known face die. And it sounds like I'm not super sad about him because I don't know his name, but I just don't know most of their names. So boy toy number 1 dies and the other 2 are like, no! And I also thought it was pretty brutal that he died by his own sword. But before he died, he got stopped from doing maybe what was going to be the coolest thing ever, even though I didn't want Liandrin to die. They both had their swords and they were going to double sword behead Liandrin. I was like, this is so crazy. I genuinely can't believe she's going to die. And then someone magic blocks it and it's just like, what? Just so crazy to be so excited about a scene. And then when you're watching it for the 5th time, you're like, yeah, this is pretty exciting this time, but not as exciting the other 4 times. And then bam, it gets even crazier and more exciting. Just overwhelmingly cool. I love sexy ladies. I love magic. I particularly love sexy ladies doing magic. And if a boy toy has to die in the process for me to see my magical ladies doing cool magic stuff, just a casualty of super cool stuff. Another moment in this cold open that I thought was absolutely delightful was that Moiraine, because she can't be allowed back in the White Tower, she's just kind of like observing the fight, and she doesn't really even know how bad it is, but it kind of felt like someone like on the bench of like a sport game, and like they're watching and they're like, oh, I'd love to go in there and help, but I'm on the bench, you know, and no one tag me in. I'm actually quite happy standing here and not being killed, but I just thought that was a very funny visual where she's just like, just observing maybe the craziest thing that's ever happened. Another thing that this scene did, or kind of confirmed that I didn't realize, was that I kind of figured that if there was going to be more magic witch ladies that were evil, the Black Aja like Liandrin, it would just be the rest of the red team, like a rest of the red Aja. But it turns out there's just like a bunch everywhere. They're just like secret spies all over the place, completely infiltrated. Totally reminds me of the Winter Soldier when it's just like, oh, Hydra's everywhere. Hydra's in every facet of S.H.I.E.L.D. They are everywhere. We don't even know how many we've got. Have we got them all? Who knows? Super, super exciting, super cool. And I just feel like I'm really excited to see where this takes the show, because so much of how the world kind of views the Aes Sedai is one very specific kind of thing. Like, they all view them as this one thing. And during that scene, one of the things I thought was really interesting is like, how is this going to affect the world and how they view the Aes Sedai now? And a major plot point for the next 3 episodes, which I thought was really interesting, and I didn't kind of think about when I first saw the scene, was like, people don't know. And I guess that makes sense. All the action happened in the White Tower. No one's allowed in there except for the Aes Sedai and their cleaners, I guess, and Min for some reason. So I kind of presumed that everyone would know and their like perception of the Aes Sedai would change, but that's going to be something they're going to try and contain and not let anyone know. Which makes sense, but I am excited for the world to kind of find out that like half or even more than half of the Aes Sedai are just flat out evil, and that they can't trust any of them ever again, because even just like the fundamental thing was like, they can't lie. Aes Sedai cannot lie. Dr. Zeus and all up in this shit with their sweet, sweet rhymes. Well, guess what? That's just not true. Maybe all of them are dark friends. We don't know. So as like the common folk, I'm really excited for them to find out, just because I feel like that dynamic shift in the story is going to be really, really exciting. And I'm kind of on board with like all the machinations of Elena's like mum, the queen from Andor or whatever. I'm kind of excited for her magic witch lady who she makes stay in 2nd episode, who's got the craziest, graveliest voice. She's like, I am the magic witch lady from Andor. I can't even do it because her voice is so croaky. She sounds like an elderly version of Miley Cyrus. In a lot of ways, I feel like I've talked about this scene too much, but at the same time, if you feel like I haven't talked about it enough, as I said, I've done a live react and review of that, so go check that out. It's like 20 minutes long, and it's mostly me just screaming and being like, what? Last part of this cold open that I want to discuss is I thought it was really interesting that Mother was about to die, the rocks are all falling on her, and then this big shield blocks her, and you're kind of like, oh, who saved her? And it never occurred to me that it might be Moiraine, but it kind of totally works. It's kind of brutal and intense and like really messy, because literally the last time she saw Mother, her lover, super gross. She must hate that her name is Mother, because her mother is her lover. But unfortunately now she isn't concerned with labels, because it's her ex-lover now, because last time they met, she like essentially sexually assaulted her in the mind. It was really intense, really brutal. So they're clearly never going to be what they once were, but I kind of like that she at least still respects what they had at some point to save her. Like, she doesn't want her to die, but at the same time, there's no hugs and kisses, and like they're not celebrating afterwards. Moiraine just kind of gives her a look like, yeah, I didn't want you to die, and then just runs off. So it's like, I don't know, she's still like, hey, you ruined everything here, but I don't know, a bit of mutual respect still there, which I thought was really, really nice, and a good, quick, little powerful moment. So enough about the greatest scene that ever was. Let's talk about our 5 main heroes of the wheel. Rand and the other guys, you know them. So we get a beautiful, fun little time with all our 5 main characters, and I just really like in stories, especially these big, sprawling, epic fantasy things, when we get to have a little bit of peace and happiness with our heroes before they all have to split off and do their own little quests and side missions and, you know, do the plot and stuff where it's all sad and miserable and everyone's like, this sucks. God, I hate this. The boys having some drinks together was truly the peak of cinema and the peak of this show, and I've said a lot about that cold open, but honestly, the boys just having a couple of drinks together really warmed my heart. I absolutely love just that little moment when Matt's like, you've never kissed another lady, Rand, and Rand's like, I've done more than kiss a couple of ladies. And they're all like, whoo-hoo, oh, Selene, who's this Selene? And I'm like, I cannot wait for for Madame Perrin to find out that this sexy innkeeper lady that Rand kind of hints he's had sex with is Lanfear, the Forsaken, his enemy, one of the biggest enemies. But is she going to be one of the biggest enemies? I feel like in these 3 episodes, something that's become very clear to me is that Lanfear's plot is heading straight into the cliche, and don't get me wrong, not in a bad way. I'm not saying that in the derogatory sense. Cliches sometimes are good, but I'm talking about the cliche, and maybe my favorite cliche in fantasy, villain turned anti-hero. Oh boy, does she seem like she's going to be anti-heroing all over this show, and I cannot wait. So the first thing that struck me when we saw our 5 heroes all back together is that they have definitely been living it up in the city. Their style and costume and clothes, and particularly their hair, has almost entirely changed for every character. In fact, I think every character except for Nynaeve looks entirely different. And I feel like that really works for Nynaeve's character. Like, she's still kind of dressed the same. Her hair hasn't changed. She essentially just looks the same. And I feel like that really speaks to her character. Whereas, like, Elayne, for instance, always in those plain, ugly, novice kind of clothes. But in this first episode, she's in this gorgeous orange dress that just totally brings out the color in her hair. I mean, yeah, let's get real. Let's start talking about style, clothes, and hair, because I have a lot to say. Egwene, I don't want to throw shade to your hairstyle from previous seasons, but oh my god, cut with some kind of wavy things going on. She looks so hot. The hair looks fantastic. I'm a big fan. Perrin, he's grown the hair out. It looks great. Also, his eyes, like, I know it's not like an intentional cosmetic change to his vibe, but I kind of like it. Like, those orange wolf eyes really suit him. I do understand that his mentor wolf guy from season 2 kind of implied that he couldn't turn into a wolf, but I don't really want him to turn into a wolf. I hope that he turns into a werewolf at a certain point. Like, and I know that might be crazy. Don't spoil it if it does or doesn't happen. But that's essentially my, like, top of my bingo card that I want to happen. Maybe not this season, but just, like, at some point. Because every single character in this, because it's a fantasy and it's awesome, is essentially like, you're like this thing, but maybe the greatest one that's ever existed. So I kind of hope he's like the greatest wolf boy that's ever lived, and that means he can turn into a werewolf. But don't take this away from me, Wheel of Time. Make Perrin a werewolf. I beg of thee. Rand's hair's grown out a little bit, and when I first saw the trailer, I was like, I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I really like the buzz cut off to army kind of shaved head he had last season, but after these 3 episodes, I've totally gotten used to it, and it's a great hair. It looks good. And I'm pretty aware that, like, the red hair part of, like, Rand the Dragon Reborn is, like, a big part of, like, the visual look of his character. So it makes sense they want to make sure you're aware that his hair is red. So I get that. And last but not least on my Wheel of Time fashion talk. It's fashion talk by a man who knows at least what the word fashion is. Matt's style has always been very daggy and baggy, loose kind of fitting clothes. He's always got a robe going on. He's kind of got this schlocky kind of look, but he always, like, pulls it off. Now he's got the exact same look, the exact same daggy, baggy clothes, but now they're expensive and they are dripping. Have I used that phrase correctly? I'm actually older than I look. I don't think I used that phrase correctly. What I'm trying to say is he looks great and his clothes look very expensive. I'm a big fan. We should probably stop talking about fashion. There is so much to unpack. Let's talk that final scene of episode 1, which was so good. So at the end of season 2, the Forsaken were all broken out. We've got all 6 of them or whatever. I did think at one point it was 12, like 12 Forsaken, but I feel like they keep saying 6. So I'm not sure if the other 6 were like fully killed or murdered, or if they're being revealed for later, or if it's just 6 now. I felt like there were 6 stone thingies that were broken and, like, you know, they're tombs or whatever. So I feel like there's 6, but I don't know. But I was just very well aware that there's a bunch of Forsaken that are going to sneakily appear at some point in this season, outside of the Spider one and obviously Lanfear. And so despite the fact that Lanfear and Moiraine clearly said that they were going to do, like, the thing at the end of the episode, and it's like a little vague to kind of trip out non-book guys like me, I thought it was so clever to have all 3 different action set piece kind of fighting moments feel very different and unique. Because I was essentially like, oh, okay, so one of the Forsaken's like a mirror guy, and the other Forsaken's like an invisible guy, and the other Forsaken is just some, like, old creepy grey guy. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. They all got, like, their own little gimmick. Like, Lanfear's gimmick is dreams and being very sexy. Ishi's is being very sexy. I am not superficial. Always. And of course, the Spider Lady's gimmick is spider stuff, like webs. She's always like, I'm webbing you up, and I'm like, don't, you gross spider lady, you're really freaking me out. But then for the reveal to just be like, Moiraine walks up to Lanfear, she's like, you went too far, and Lanfear's like, did I? I'm like, oh, Lanfear, I love her. I love that she was also like, Moiraine, The only thing I like about you is that you are going to hurt these people to push Rand in the right direction. And she's like, how dare you? That's actually a good idea, though. Like, great idea. Let's do that. And they stab the shit out of all of them. Perrin's hand is like split in half. He gets stabbed. I like feel like I know that the main characters aren't going to die, like at least this early. I feel at a certain point one of them is definitely going to like die, but it feels way too early. Like I know there's like 12 books or whatever, at least like 10 or something crazy. So we're a book, presumably 3, maybe a bit of 4 mixed in there. I just can't imagine one of them dies this early. Yet in this scene, I'm like, are they all going to die? What is going on? But then I loved the double reveal where it wasn't just Moiraine and Lanfear. And she's like, hey, grey guy, stabbing Nynaeve. I didn't do that. And then that just like so funny and casual where she's like, ha ha ha, we're stabbing Rand's friends. And that's funny and I'm having fun with that. She's just the fear where she's like, grey man, that means spider lady. And just that fear just drips into her. And she's just like, we got to get out of the city right now. At the end of season 2, when we first saw the spider-forsaken lady, I just got such a visceral feeling of, ugh, like a spider woman. And she's all like, and she's using like the weaves and the one power, but just like cobwebs. And this time they're like, you thought she was a spider last time. Well, she's going to literally have a guy up in a full like cobweb situation. And at first I had no idea what was going on, but throughout the episodes kind of piecing together like, oh, okay, so the grey men are like her zombies that do her bidding, and that like, she clearly kind of has to like they have to kind of agree to be grey men. Like she can't just be like, I've got you in my web. Grey man. She like tortures them to the point where they agree to be the grey men and kind of let her in. And that is just super disgusting. Like amazing. I loved it, but just, so awful and twisted in just the best way possible. Really, really like that. That actress is just absolutely killing it. Every time she appears on screen, I'm like upset and unsettled. Like just fun, you know, when you like you feel that like kind of ugh in the back of your neck, you're like, ugh. Yeah, there's really, I have no good articulate words to describe her. When I see her, I feel all like, ugh. So for episodes 2 and 3, Rand and crew go to the Ale Wasteland. I'm probably mispronouncing and saying all the names wrong, but it's just so funny to me because he's like, let's go to the desert and I'm going to get my army. And they've got this prophecy where this chosen one, Karakara or Karakana or whatever, the Dragon Reborn, but they say it differently and all that stuff. They've got a prophecy and they're desert people and this white guy's going to come and save him because he's got sweet magic powers. And I'm like, okay, slow down, Wheel of Time, because as soon as I saw them in season 2, I was like, like the Fremen in Dune. They've got like the same thing going on. They're like, we're desert people, we have desert powers, you can't see us when we're hiding in the desert. And like, they're essentially just like, what if the Fremen didn't have blue eyes, but instead had red hair? And I was like, I can dig that. It's just so funny, because now their plot is just so Fremen. They are such Fremen. The Aiel, the Aiel are such Fremen. They keep just stumbling into being Fremen. Every time I think they're not Fremen, they're just more Fremen. They've even got a wise old lady who's like, oh, the prophecies mean this and that. I'm like, you are just like one of the wise women from Dune. It's just crazy. Very funny, and I kind of love it, but just, yeah, such similarities where Rand is essentially just now Paul Atreides, and I'm digging a lot. I love Dune. I love Fremen. I love the desert. I love desert people using desert powers. And they're always talking about how good water is. They're like, I bless you to have water and stuff. And it's like, can you imagine living in a world where people just like, you just can't have water? Just, that sucks. That just seems so horrible. Like actually the worst thing in the world where like, there's like a joke at one point where like they're in the steam house and they're like putting coals on and they're steaming. And I'm like, is it implied that that's instead of having a bath? Because at one point the lady's like, these wetlanders are from, also wetlanders. Feels like a slur, Fremen. Maybe don't keep saying wetlander all the time. Kind of feels like calling someone a mudblub, or, you know, one of the slurs which I literally can't say on this channel because it's a slur. So yeah, I love the Fremen. Stop slurring, guys. Maybe? I don't want to culture shame anybody. But at the same time, a slur's a slur. And so like the Fremen are all like, these crazy wetlanders, it feels bad that I'm now encouraging the slur by saying it, but that's what they said. I am simply a narrator narrating the things I saw. But they're all like, hey, these guys from out of town. See, that's what it, just say they're from out of town. These out of towners. That's like, you know, people can be from out of town. That's cool. So they're all like, these out of towners, they have so much water, they sit in it and bathe in it. And it's like, yeah, to wash. Like, how are you washing? Is this how you're washing? Because I feel like that would make you more sweaty. And when you get sweaty, like, I feel like when I get really sweaty, that's when I need to wash the most. I don't know. I'm just really unsure about the hygiene of these Fremen. It just, like, that can't just be me, right? I mean, yeah. But on a more important note, Lan meets a chick and he's like, you have a tattoo. And she's like, yep. You're a king. Let's king you up. And I'm like, what? I vaguely remember that from season 1. So I do vaguely remember he was from that land from the end of season 1, all the CGI troglodytes swarmed them and they killed everyone. I don't remember them killing everyone. In fact, I remember 4 main characters next to Perrin all dying, including the Ogier, and they were all just fine in season 2, which I understand was probably just some kind of weird mix-up. I don't know what happened there. I still, rewatching, I'm like, they die. And then just the next scene, they're like, we're fine. And I'm like, something happened in the middle of that season. Strange. I guess I have to imagine that one of the magic witch ladies that's there healed them. But how could have they if they all died? I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting it all wrong and he's not from that place. But she implied that he's like the last king. He's an Aragorn, if you will. And she's like, I'm like female Aragorn. Let's king it up together. King and queen it up. And I'm like, that was the moment where I went, okay. I feel like there is a lot happening in this show. There's a lot. I am struggling to keep up with everything. I'm struggling to figure out how that feels relevant to everything. That was like the one plot point where I'm like, whoa, Wheel of Time. Calm down. A lot's happening. But also I feel like maybe that's because there was 3 full episodes that were all over an hour and I was trying to take notes and trying to remember things, but also just trying to sit back and enjoy. And then like every 15 minutes I'd be like, I should really note that down. That felt very important. So yeah, maybe I was just overwhelmed because I knew I'd have to be talking about it. Have to be. I love talking about it. Don't get me wrong. I just wonder if I only watched 1 episode and that happened in there, I'd be like, oh, that's really exciting. Whereas I was like, I am mildly overwhelmed by that. Also, probably just because, like, I don't feel like I need him to do that. I just like him with Moiraine. We spent a whole season where he's like, Moiraine doesn't love me anymore. And now he's like, Moiraine loves me, huzzah! And they can, do sexy sword poses on the mountain hilltops. And Rand's like, I love holding a sword in my hand. And I'm like, I do too. It's super cool. Swords are cool. Death and murder bad, but swords, pretty cool. So Rand and Egwene are dating and she's got a bit of PTSD, an extreme amount of PTSD, obviously from the Fingernail tribe doing all their awful collar stuff. I hate the Fingernail tribe, I hate them so very much. Oh, I cannot wait for more of them to appear so more of them can die. And so she's got PTSD and dealing with that, but she's trying to make it work with Rand and they have sex and there's a pretty funny moment where they're sleeping together like at nighttime next to each other and then he like falls into his dream and Egwene is replaced with Lanfear and I'm like, oh boy. He shouldn't, but he still loves Lanfear. Love might be the wrong word. I feel like he loves Egwene and he lusts for Lanfear. Even though Lanfear is a villain and evil and all that stuff. But is she evil? No, she's going to anti-hero all over this place. And I'm super excited for that. On the Egwene side of things, something very interesting has happened where I guess every character's got their thing. Like, I'm a wolf guy. I'm a sword/horn guy. I'm the dragon reborn. I'm the strongest magical witch lady in the world, but I don't want to use my magic. Etc, etc, etc. Elayne's even got the, I'm a queen princess or whatever. And so Nynaeve was like, she's also like a very strong magic witch lady. So like, what's going to separate her and Nynaeve from like, the big thing? And hers is apparently, she's a dream walker. And I thought this was really interesting. All the stuff with Lanfear in the dreams is really exciting and cool. And the one thing though that I thought was kind of fun, not funny. I just think it was kind of interesting how it's like, she's talking to the old wise lady and she's like, in your dreams, things can be real or whatever. And she's like, all the cuts and talking about the cuts. And she's like, hey, so who's ever doing that, like, can't be dead. And she's like, no, she's dead. I'm like, I can confirm. I rewatched season 2 recently. Rhaena is dead. Absolutely dead. Lady Ramsay Bolton, dead-zo. And then it's kind of implied, like, maybe she's not. She's like, no, I don't think she is dead. And, like, Egwene is all like, oh my god, she's not dead. And in my brain, I'm like, I am so much smarter than this show. I am a genius. I am Sherlock Holmesing this so hard. I'm like Batman, the world's greatest detective. I figured it out. It's Lanfear. Lanfear's like pretending to be Rhaena in the dreams and is torturing Egwene and keep cutting her. And so like, she does have PTSD, but Lanfear is torturing her in her dreams, which is psycho. And like, the second I thought that and thought I was ahead of the show literally cuts from that scene straight to Lanfear, and I'm like, oh, it's not going to be something they reveal later. That was essentially the reveal right there. And I don't know why I'm disappointed. It's still cool. It doesn't take away from it being cool. I just thought I was clever. And I never am, so it was just disappointing to realize that once again, just not clever, just watching a show and understanding the thing they were saying. Also, backtracking a bit with Egwene, she goes through the arches because she's like, I gotta get out of this White Tower, man. And I gotta do that by going through the arches. And here is where I feel like the show being an 8-episode show and not being like, 12 episodes or even 10 is kind of like a little restricting and mildly disappointing at times. Although I feel like with so many books, like there's like 10 or 12 books or whatever, and they're probably very big books and there's so much to do, maybe it's a little repetitive to show every single character who goes into the arches and all 3 of their trials. But at the same time, it just kind of feels like these very visually unique and very visually interesting, but also character-focused kind of demons and like their wants and desires, but their nightmares and their fears. And like, there's just so much kind of goodness and juicy material to be mined from those scenes inside the arches that can kind of haunt and change the character forever. I feel like Nynaeve having that family and like knowing she had that kid and like doesn't now is kind of going to inform her character for the whole series. So I don't know, Egwene's kind of felt like a little bit like, like they definitely picked a good one, because like I guess her biggest fear would be Rand going full evil Dragon Reborn. He's got big long hair and he's sitting, and like, I saw the big long hair very briefly in the trailer, and when I reacted to that I was like, I don't know if he can do the long hair. I kind of feel like the shorter hair works for him, and now we've seen it in live action for a whole scene. Yes, he does not look great in it. I don't know, maybe that's just a personal choice. I just feel like he seems like a short hair guy. So the hair, I don't know, maybe it's just because I know it's a wig. I'm like, that's a big wig. But also I am massively relieved that it is a dream or a nightmare or whatever, and that he's not going to have it like in a flash forward or whatever. Like, they're not going to flash forward and be like, I've been gone for 6 months and I've got long hair to prove it. I don't know. Just relieved that it was a dream. I don't mean to be negative. I truly do love this show. I love what it's doing. It makes me feel so excited and fun and happy. I really, really enjoy it. I don't know if Rand, like the actor's acting for being like an evil Dragon Reborn who's lost his mind, I kind of feel like that felt a little lackluster, a little high school theater-y, just like kind of overacting. It just kind of like, it did make me go a little worried, because at a certain point in the series, he's presumably, at least for like an arc or an episode or a season, is going to kind of be overwhelmed by that. And I just think he plays a very interesting, quiet, reserved, stoic kind of character. I think his acting's gotten better and better and better in every facet, but just him being kind of crazy Dragon Reborn, I don't know. It didn't wow me. It didn't horrify me. And hopefully it's just the wig. Hopefully the wig just threw me. But yeah, that scene just felt a little bit like, I would like more, but what we were given was a bit, On an upside, back to the positives, because we're all about having fun here with one of my favorite shows. Like, honestly, I do love that when like we don't see like what happens, they're like, what are we doing here? And then it just cuts and Egwene busts out of the arch and she's just covered in blood. And it's like, oh damn. She killed him. Speaking on archers and not showing it, Elayne doesn't even get one. Elayne just skips right over the archer sequence. And I don't know, maybe it's a good way to kind of reveal later, like later in an intimate moment with her and hopefully Rand, because there was a moment they looked at each other at the end of season 2 where it's like, who's this sexy lady? And she's like, who's this sexy guy? And they both got red hair. It's a match made in heaven. But more importantly, two sexy people. Why wouldn't they? Because of Egwene and Lanfear. And Elayne also likes Avianda, potentially, I'm saying her name right? I don't know. But yeah, I still want them to have sex, because that was one of my hot bingo card predictions. Yeah, because of that one look they gave for 3 seconds in season 2. So yeah, I don't know, maybe like an intimate moment between them later in the seasons, she can kind of think back on the archers and we get that scene. But like just kind of cutting and being like, you got the ring, congratulations, you passed the archers. It's like, I feel like not showing them and not giving us the time in there kind of like undermines like how important and dangerous and horrible they are. And it kind of makes it feel like, I don't know, could I just pass the archers? I'm just some schmuck. Speaking of Elayne, we got a really interesting, different, unique side to Elayne than we've got previously. In season 2, she was kind of like a naive, kind of optimistic, kind of, young, spirited, but kind of, innocent novice. And in this season, like, there's a scene with her very early on with Rand where she's like, actually, call me Miss Politician because I do politics. In my head, I had something great, and that was absolutely nothing. I do apologize. But what I do mean by that is I thought she was really interesting in how political she seemed. Like, there was just so much behind her and so much kind of more, I don't know, just machinations and working out. It's like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but there was just kind of a thing where she's like, well, oh yeah, it was like, hey, to be a ruler, you have to learn one simple thing. You cannot please everyone. You please some, you're going to disappoint others. Fundamental part of ruling. And I was like, hot damn, that's like super wise, and like you actually understand the game. Like, she's all Game of Thrones up in this shit. Like, it's super cool. I really feel like it just added this whole extra layer to this character. She didn't even do that much in season 2, but just was kind of like a really cool friend, and just, I don't know, I like the idea of like, we've got the 5 core heroes and this one extra person comes in later, kind of like Max in Stranger Things, like just a fun kind of dynamic that jumps in the second season and is like, hey, actually, I'm also going to be a main character for the series. But now I feel like she's such a well-rounded, fleshed out, interesting character. And also there's a thing they talk about where it's like the tear of stone or the stone of tear. And I might be misunderstanding this, because this was kind of the one through line of these 3 episodes that I was like, I must be mishearing. I must be. But at the same time, the Aiel are just Fremen. So is this just the sword in the stone? Because it sounds like there's a magical sword he needs to kill the Forsaken, and it's stuck in a stone. Which, like, when you take, like, forget about King Arthur. It makes sense. Magical sword, and back in the days when they were doing stuff, the Forsaken were all like, magic powers and the Dragon Reborn, and things happened, and a sword got magically stuck into one of those stones that the Forsaken are stuck in. That's what I kind of got. And they're like unbreakable things. And only the Dragon Reborn can smash open these stone thingies. And a sword got stuck in there when he trapped one of them in there or something. And I was like, that's all cool and epic and amazing and super good. The lore and mythology, when you just think about it, as Wheel of Time. But I can't, because King Arthur's like super famous. Like if you are watching this video and you don't know who King Arthur is, you're lying to me. I don't know. Just a little strange and kind of hilarious and kind of bizarre. I think I love it because I do love King Arthur and I love the Sword and the Stone, like, just story. Super fun. Why not have it in this? And I kind of will just, I'll be chanting and cheering and hooting and hollering when Rand picks up the sword out of the stone. It's going to be so incredible. Oh, but it also could be a thing like the horn, where it's like, Rand's going to blow the horn, and it's like, Matt blew the horn. So maybe someone else is going to be the sword wielder, and it's going to add this extra layer of mythology to the world. All super exciting. Just can't help but notice it's just King Arthur. Or I have misunderstood, misinterpreted, and misheard everything about that, which is also as likely. So Elayne's political side of her whole character is really fleshed out in episode 2 when her mother comes to the White Tower. I thought the start of episode 2, the cold open, where Elayne's mother is standing there and she was all like, we've been doing a big Game of Thrones and I won the Game of Thrones. But there needs to be one more cheeky Game of Thrones. And she just has all of like the second tier guys kill the main tier guys of all her enemies, and she's like, yes, now we have completed doing a bit of cheeky Game of Thrones. And I was like, yeah, this is a lot of Game of Thronesing all over the place, and I loved it. I really like seeing Elayne's family. It was really interesting seeing them come to the White Tower, just kind of adding a new extra layer to everything. All the political machinations of the White Tower trying to hide the big massacre that happened, and all that stuff's really, really juicy and interesting. The big kind of thing, though, is obviously Galad and Gawain or Garain or whatever. Galad or Gawain or Garwin and Galadin or whatever. I'm just going to call them the G-Boys. And do you know why? Not because their names start with G. That would be absurd. Because they are golden. Oh boy, are they golden. One of them particularly is golden. The other one less golden, has a beard and stuff, kind of ruin the golden vibe. But one of them, very golden. So our golden boys are doing a bit of a sword fight. And they're all sword fighting, shirtless and stuff. And everyone's swooning and hooting and hollering and just having a delightful time. Also found it incredibly funny that Matt is just being super like kind of party boy, like playboy kind of party boy situation. He's got his shirt open. He's just having such a time. And then as soon as he sees these guys, he gets so self-conscious and so kind of jealous. He starts buttoning up his shirt and just acting so different. And I just thought that was very funny. What isn't funny is that Matt is also, like Egwene, dealing with PTSD. This was probably the most surprising plot, if I'm going to be honest. I thought the horn kind of wouldn't be like a factor anymore. I thought it's like, you blow it once and it's over and that's kind of it. Whereas he's showboating about and being like, look at these photos of me blowing the horn. Aren't I the coolest? I'm like, he is the coolest. But to realize that Matt has actually got like this intense PTSD of just like dealing with these wars from his past lives and just thinking about them and hearing and kind of reliving all these battles and wars in his mind all the time. He's speaking different old languages and all this kind of stuff. His mind is completely muddled. He's just confused and all out of it and stuff. Just super tragic and sad after such a heartwarming and uplifting, heroic moment of blowing the horn and realizing that his past selves weren't evil and he's like a warrior of the horn or whatever you call it, a hero of the horn. I don't know, it's just like crazy to be like, oh, now he's all sad and shit. And he's like kind of like dealing with all this trauma of it. Really intense, very interesting though. But then kind of a fun little wrinkle of that is he's got his past lives 6 quarterstaff use. And he beats up the G-boys and he's like, you guys owe me $2. And I'm like, I don't understand the currency. What's 2 marks compared to the Australian dollar? Like, what's the exchange rate going there? Like, how much did you win? Like, are we talking like $100? $50? $1,000? Like, whoa, what are we talking, Matt? I need to know. So Perrin decides to go with the Ogier and the 2 other Fremen, and they're like, we gotta go home. And then they go home. And then they meet Alana and her other boy toy that didn't die, and I'm like, why are they here? How did they get here? What's going on with these guys? And then there's a moment where they're in the 2 rivers again and people are coming up to them and I'm like, are these people from the first episode? I don't remember any of these people. Am I meant to know or care? I don't know. Kind of fun that he's gone back home. And of course, I shouldn't have been surprised when the White Cloaks rocked up. I was like, what the hell? What are they doing in the 2 rivers? And then I'm like, because that's Perrin's plot. That's clearly Perrin's plot. It's been his plot for the whole show. Why would they not be there? That would be insane if they're not there. So they're there and the Troglodytes are there. Trollocs are there. I keep saying Troglodytes. I say it every time. The Trollocs are going to be there. The White Cloaks are going to be there. Perrin's there and he's all like, you farm people don't suck. Come and fight with me. Huzzah. And he does a big huzzah. Yeah, I don't have much to say about Perrin's plot yet. I am really just waiting for him to become a werewolf. I know he probably won't, but God, do I hope he does. Liandrin is looking for the second part of the collar that will chain Man. So she's going to try and chain and collar the Dragon Reborn. And I just think that's super exciting and super cool. Really, really awesome plot for the evil characters to have. I just absolutely love it. It's a great little end for the episode where the spider lady is all like, I'm in the shadows with Liandrin. And I was like, hold on. She seems very like they don't realize it's her, the Forsaken. Like, do they think she's just kind of there? Do they think she's some kind of novice Aes Sedai? Like, do they not realize that's the spider Forsaken? Like, I don't know. I was very confused about what the dynamic was there. Because at first I'm like, oh my God, she's there with them. She's controlling Liandra. And then I'm like, that doesn't feel like Leandra's even aware that she's there. Like, so does Liandra not even know that she's broken out as a Forsaken? I don't know. Very curious to see how that plays out in the future. But all of that stuff at Tanchico, even though we're there for a very brief period of time, was awesome. Kind of visually looked a bit like Tortuga. Just super colorful on the edge of the ocean. Just like, I don't know, so vibrant and interesting and kind of gross and grimy. Just, I don't know, a very beautiful aesthetic from the costumes and the set design. Absolutely loved it. I also love that Liandrin, clearly the villain, a bad guy, gets scenes where she saves a woman from like being married to a pedophile. And it was like the great-great-grandson of like her ex-husband who was also like a rapist and a pedophile. And so she's killing these pedophile rapist descendants of her pedophile rapist and just being awesome and killing everybody. And it was just like, it's such a feel-good moment of like, not, you know, feel-good sounds like wrong, but it's like justice. Like, you know, like, yeah, justice for awful, horrible people getting what they deserve. And it's powerful and it's emotional. And you're totally on her side. And like, as everyone thinks, oh, the carnage is going, she's killing everyone. She goes up to this little girl and she's like, it's going to be okay. And it's kind of like, wow, that's some juicy, powerful stuff for your villain. Just to like really make you empathize with her in this moment and really contextualize and strengthen her character. I think it was fantastic. An amazing scene. And finally, I want to talk about the first scene, the cold open of episode 3. Because I think it might be the craziest thing I've ever seen. Outside of everything else that happened. Everything was crazy, but this one in particular was crazy. There was the moment where Lanfear rocks up and she's talking to Gabriel, who was Elayne's mum's new boy toy, and like you could tell that that's not her dad, like it's like the stepdad kind of situation. Like you could get that vibe, but never in a million billion years would I have ever guessed that he was a Forsaken. Him being a Forsaken blew my mind. I was generally shaking. I was like, what an incredible reveal. That moment where he's having like drinks with Elayne and she's like, every time we hang out, all we do is drink. And I'm like, oh, that's so funny and delightful. He's such a cool stepdad. No, he's brain-minded screwed her or whatever. And he's put a brain-mind power spell on everybody, and like they all think he's been there for 10 years. He's been there for like 2 months. Crazy, mind-blowing, absolutely insane. Absolutely loved it. I also love how the Forsaken, they kept talking about them before they rocked up, being like, they just squabble amongst themselves. They're just like angry, powerful children. But you literally see that where Lanfear's like, all right, so all three of us, don't talk to the other two, but us three will fight the spider, but don't talk to the other two, and this and that and that. And then at the end of the scene, he's like, goes up to the spider and he's like, oh, Lanfear, we're going to betray her, right? And he's like, yes. He's like, but don't you betray me. You seem like you're going to betray me. Are you going to betray me? Oh, no. You're also going to betray me, aren't you? And the spider's like, yes, I mean, no, not yet. And it's like, sweet. They're all just going to betray each other. The dynamic, everything feels really fresh and interesting. Everyone feels really unique and separate. I just love it. The Forsakens are super cool and awesome. Massive highlight. Everything's a highlight. Everything except for Rand's very long hair is fantastic. I love this show so very much. 10 out of 10. Well, sorry, 9.9995 out of 10. The hair. Yeah, I didn't like it. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I would love to know what you think about episodes 1, 2, 3 of Wheel of Time.